I never thought I'd end up working the night shift at a grocery store in Detroit. But life has a way of making your decisions for you. After dropping out of college in my junior year, turns out engineering wasn't my thing. I needed money fast. My apartment in the city wasn't going to pay for itself, and my parents had made it clear that if I was going to quit school, I was on my own. That's how I found myself standing outside Morrison's Market on a cold Tuesday afternoon in March, staring at the help wanted sign that looked like it had been in the window for months. The building was old, probably from the 1960s, with that brown brick exterior that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Even at 3 in the afternoon, the place looked dim inside, like the fluorescent lights were fighting a losing battle against some persistent darkness. I pushed through the front doors. They stuck a little, the automatic sensor clearly on its last legs, and looked around. The store was nearly empty. A few customers shuffled through the aisles with that glazed expression people get when they're shopping out of necessity rather than desire. The floor was clean but worn, the linoleum tiles cracked in places and patched in others. Everything had that faint smell of old refrigeration and industrial cleaner. "Help you?" A voice came from behind the customer service desk. I turned to see a man in his 60s, thin and weathered, with grey hair that stuck up in odd directions like he'd been running his hands through it all day. His name tag read, "Mr. Garrett, Manager." "I'm here about the job," I said, walking over. "The night shift position?" His eyes lit up in a way that should have been my first warning. Not excitement exactly, more like relief, the kind you feel when you've been holding your breath underwater and finally break the surface. "You got any experience?" he asked, already pulling out a clipboard from under the desk. "I worked at a gas station for 2 years during high school. Some retail experience in college." "You okay working alone?" "It's mostly solo work, 11 at night until 7 in the morning. 4 nights a week to start, but we might need you for 5. "Yeah, that's fine. I'm kind of a night owl anyway." Mr. Garrett studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. "When can you start?" Now? I mean, tonight?" "Good. Come in at 10:30. I'll do your orientation then, show you the ropes." He scribbled something on a form and handed it to me. "Fill this out and bring it with you. Don't be late." I took the paper, surprised at how easy it had been. "That's it? Don't you need references or—" "Son, if you show up on time and do the work, you've got the job. Night shift isn't exactly a popular position." He paused, then added, "There are some rules you'll need to follow. Important rules. I'll explain tonight." The way he said important made something cold settle in my stomach, but I nodded anyway. I needed this job. How bad could it be? I showed up at 10:20 that night, the completed application in hand. The parking lot was nearly empty, just 3 cars, all of them old and beaten down by Detroit winters. Mr. Garrett's Ford pickup was easy to spot. It was the only vehicle that looked like it had been there since the store opened. Inside, the store felt different at night. The lighting seemed dimmer, the shadows in the corners deeper. There were maybe 5 customers total, all of them with that late-night shopping desperation. The single guy buying frozen dinners, the woman with dark circles under her eyes, grabbing diapers and formula, the old man slowly pushing his cart through the produce section like he had nowhere else to be. Mr. Garrett was waiting for me at the customer service desk, a small stack of papers and a laminated card in front of him. "Tyler, right?" he said, checking my application. "Okay, let's make this quick. The work is straightforward. Stock shelves, keep the place clean, run the register if anyone comes through. There's usually another person on shift with you, but David called in sick tonight, so you'll be solo. I'll stay until midnight to show you the basics." He walked me through the store layout, showed me where the stockroom was, explained the inventory system, all standard stuff I'd expected. But then we ended up back at the customer service desk, and he picked up the laminated card. "Now, this is the important part," Mr. Garrett said, his voice dropping lower. "These are the rules. You follow them exactly. No exceptions. No getting creative. Understand?" I looked at the card. It was about the size of an index card. The text, printed in neat, bold letters. Morrison's Market Night Shift Rules. Rule 1. Never stock the shelves in aisle 7 after 11 o'clock. Rule 2. If a customer asks for help finding the basement entrance, tell them we don't have a basement and walk away immediately. Rule 3. The walk-in freezer locks from the inside. If you hear knocking from inside when no one else is on shift, do not open it until sunrise. Rule 4. If all the shopping carts start rattling at once, go to the break room and wait for it to stop. Rule 5. Don't make eye contact with the woman in the floral dress. She's not a customer. I read through the list twice, then looked up at Mr. Garrett with what must have been a confused expression. Are you serious?" Completely serious. His face was stone. The previous night shift guy quit without notice 3 weeks ago. Just stopped showing up. Before that, we went through 4 people in 6 months. The ones who last are the ones who follow the rules. I laughed nervously. Come on, this is like hazing, right? Mess with the new guy. Mr. Garrett didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. I've been managing this store for 18 years, Tyler. I've seen things I can't explain. I don't pretend to understand why these rules work, but they do. You follow them. You'll be fine. You ignore them. He trailed off, shaking his head. Just follow the rules. Exactly. The cold feeling from earlier returned, stronger now. But I needed this job, and honestly, the rules seemed weird but harmless enough. Don't stock one aisle after 11? Fine. Avoid a woman in a floral dress? Whatever. It had to be some sort of inside joke among the staff. Okay, I said, pocketing the laminated card. Follow the rules. Got it. Good. Mr. Garrett seemed to relax slightly. Keep that card on you at all times. There's a copy in the break room too, just in case. Now let me show you how to close out the registers. The rest of that first night passed without incident. Mr. Garrett left at midnight, reminding me one more time about the rules. I spent the night restocking shelves, carefully avoiding aisle 7 after 11, and helping the occasional customer. By 7 in the morning, when the day shift manager arrived, I was tired but satisfied. Easy money. I met Deb on my second night. She was a large woman in her 50s, with short grey hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She worked the day shift and was usually there until 11, which meant we overlapped for about half an hour. "You're the new night guy," she said. not as a question, but as a statement. She was restocking cigarettes behind the customer service counter. "You get the rules talk." "Yeah," I said. "Mr. Garrett showed me." Deb nodded, not looking at me. "Good. Follow them. They seem pretty weird." "They seem weird because they are weird." She finished with the cigarettes and finally looked at me. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. "But they work. I've been here 15 years. I've seen people ignore the rules. It doesn't end well." "What happens if—" "Just follow them," she interrupted. "Exactly. Don't get clever. Don't test them. And if you see something strange, something that doesn't make sense, you pretend you didn't see it and you keep working. Got it?" I nodded slowly. Deb's intensity was almost scarier than Mr. Garrett's warnings. "Good luck, kid." She grabbed her coat from under the counter and headed for the door. "See you tomorrow." The first few nights were boring in the way that night shifts usually are. The store was quiet after midnight, with maybe 1 or 2 customers an hour. I restocked, I mopped, I organized the shelves. I carefully avoided aisle 7 after 11, even though I was curious about why that particular rule existed. Around 3 in the morning, I'd usually get sleepy, so I'd make coffee in the break room and push through. By the time the sun started coming up and the day shift people arrived, I felt like a zombie. But the work was easy enough. I started to think the rules were just superstition, the kind of thing that gets passed down in a workplace until everyone treats it as gospel, even though there's no real reason behind it. Morrison's market was old, and old places collect strange traditions. That's what I told myself, anyway. Then came my 5th night. I was running behind on restocking. We'd gotten a big shipment that afternoon, and there was more to put away than usual. By 11:30, I still had 2 aisles to finish, aisle 7 and aisle 9. Aisle 9 was the easy one. Paper products, cleaning supplies. Aisle 7 was canned goods. I stood at the end of aisle 7, looking down its length. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, the way old lights do. The aisle looked completely normal. Neat rows of canned vegetables, soups, beans. My cart was full of cans that needed to be shelved. It's just 5 minutes of work, I thought. 10 minutes tops. What's the worst that could happen? I should have listened to my instincts. Instead, I pushed my cart into aisle 7. The temperature dropped immediately. Not gradually, instantly, like I'd stepped into a walk-in freezer. My breath came out in visible puffs. I stopped, my hands gripping the cart handle. "That's weird," I muttered to myself. The lights at the far end of the aisle flickered, then went out. Then the next set of lights, then the next. The darkness was advancing toward me, swallowing the aisle section by section. I should have run right then. But I was frozen, watching the lights go out one by one, getting closer. When they were about halfway down the aisle, I finally broke free of whatever paralysis had gripped me and turned to leave. That's when the cans started falling. Behind me, I heard a metallic sound. Thunk, thunk, thunk. I looked back and saw cans of soup falling off the shelves, not rolling off, falling straight down onto the floor, one by one, slow and deliberate. They hit the linoleum with hollow thuds, and none of them rolled away. They just fell and stayed where they landed. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The sound was rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. I ran. I left the cart right there in the middle of aisle 7 and sprinted for the break room. My heart was hammering in my chest, and that cold from the aisle seemed to have seeped into my bones. I burst through the break room door and slammed it behind me, leaning against it and trying to catch my breath. The break room was small, just a table, a few chairs, a microwave, and a mini fridge. The laminated rule card was taped to the wall next to the door. I stared at Rule 1, reading it over and over. Rule 1. Never stock the shelves in aisle 7 after 11 o'clock. I stayed in the break room until 1 in the morning, sitting at the table and drinking bad coffee. My hands were shaking. I kept telling myself there had to be a rational explanation. Faulty wiring, temperature fluctuations, shelves installed wrong so cans would fall. But I couldn't make myself believe it. Finally, I forced myself to go back out. I needed to clean up the mess I'd made, retrieve the cart, finish my work. I approached aisle 7 slowly, half expecting, I don't know what. Darkness, cold, more falling cans. The aisle was completely normal. The lights were all on. The temperature was fine. And all the cans were back on the shelves, perfectly arranged. Not a single one out of place. My cart was gone. I checked every aisle, the stockroom, even outside. The cart had vanished. Eventually, I found it in the back corner of the stockroom, empty. All the cans I'd loaded onto it neatly stacked on a nearby shelf. I didn't stock aisle 7 that night. I left it exactly as it was. For the next few nights, I followed the rules religiously. I didn't go near aisle 7 after 11. I didn't test anything. I just did my work and tried not to think about what had happened. On my 8th night, I saw her for the first time. It was 2:30 in the morning. I was in the produce section, rotating stock and pulling out anything that looked wilted. The store was empty, not a single customer, just me and the hum of the refrigeration units. That's when I noticed her. She was standing about 15 feet away, facing the lettuce display. She wore a floral print dress, the kind you'd see in old photographs from the 1950s. Fitted waist, full skirt that came down to mid-calf. The pattern was roses, pink and yellow on a white background. Her dark hair was styled in victory rolls. She wasn't moving, just standing there, perfectly still, staring at the lettuce. "Excuse me," I started to say, taking a step toward her. "Can I help you find—" Then I remembered Rule 5. Rule 5. Don't make eye contact with the woman in the floral dress. She's not a customer. I stopped mid-sentence, my mouth still open. The woman didn't react to my voice. She didn't turn. She didn't move at all. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes fixed on the floor. My heart was pounding again. I grabbed a cart of canned goods. Not from aisle 7, I'd learned that lesson, and moved to the next aisle over. From there, I could still kind of see her through the gaps in the shelving. She didn't move for 45 minutes. I kept working, kept glancing over. She just stood there, facing the lettuce, not shopping, not looking around, just existing. There was something wrong about her stillness. People sway a little when they stand. They shift their weight, adjust their posture. She was as motionless as a mannequin. I forced myself to focus on stocking shelves. Every few minutes, I'd glance back through the gaps. She was always there, always in the exact same position. Finally, I had to rotate more produce. I couldn't avoid it. I took a deep breath, pushed my cart back to the produce section, and kept my eyes down. I could see her in my peripheral vision, maybe 10 feet away. I grabbed some bagged salads from the cart and started loading them into the refrigerated case. The smell hit me then, thick and rotten, like meat left out in the sun for days. I gagged, pulling my shirt up over my nose. The produce around me looked fine, but the smell was overwhelming. I finished loading the salads as quickly as I could and backed away. When I looked up, careful not to look at where her face would be, she was gone. Just vanished. 1 second she was there, the next she wasn't. I approached the spot where she'd been standing. The smell was worse up close, nauseating. I looked at the lettuce she'd been staring at. The entire display was rotted. Not old and wilted, actually rotted, black and liquefied, dripping down into the collection tray beneath the shelf. It looked like it had been decomposing for weeks. I spent the next hour throwing out the destroyed produce and cleaning the case. My hands were shaking the entire time. The smell didn't go away until almost 4 in the morning. I started dreading going to work. Every night I'd sit in my car in the parking lot, staring at the store and trying to work up the courage to go inside. But I needed the money. And honestly, where else was I going to find a job that paid this well for what was essentially just stocking shelves? On my 12th night, a man asked me about the basement. It was 3:15 in the morning. I was mopping near the front of the store when he walked in through the automatic doors. He was wearing a business suit, dark blue, crisp white shirt, red tie. Normal enough, except that his movements were strange. Too smooth, too fluid, like he was gliding rather than walking. He approached me with a smile. "Excuse me, could you show me to the basement entrance?" His voice was pleasant, professional, but his eyes were wrong. They were too dark, and they didn't blink. I remembered Rule 2 immediately. Rule 2. If a customer asks for help finding the basement entrance, tell them we don't have a basement and walk away immediately. "We don't have a basement," I said, my voice cracking slightly. I set the mop down and started walking toward the customer service desk. "Are you certain?" The man followed me, still gliding. "I was here last week. Someone showed me." I walked faster. "No basement, sorry. But I'm quite sure." I was almost running now. I went behind the customer service desk and grabbed my phone, pretending to be busy with something. The man stopped at the edge of the counter, just standing there, watching me. "I really must insist," he said. "The basement entrance. It's very important that I find it." I didn't respond. I kept my eyes on my phone, scrolling through nothing. The man stood there for 10 minutes. I timed it. 10 full minutes of him just standing at the counter, staring at me. He didn't blink once. Then, without a word, he turned and glided back toward the entrance. The automatic doors opened for him, and he disappeared into the darkness of the parking lot. I waited another 5 minutes before I dared to move. My legs felt like jelly. I looked at the schedule Mr. Garrett kept behind the counter, checking who had worked the previous week's night shift. The slot was empty. No one had worked night shift the previous week. Night 15 was when things got really bad. David, the other night shift guy, had called in sick again. I was alone, and I hated being alone. At least with another person there, you could pretend things were normal. You could make small talk, complain about the job, feel like you were just working a regular shift. Alone, the store felt like something else entirely. The aisles stretched longer, the shadows seemed darker. Every sound echoed. It was 4 in the morning when I heard the knocking. I was restocking shelves in aisle 3, breakfast cereals, when the sound reached me. 3 slow knocks, a pause, then 3 more, coming from the back of the store. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Pause, thunk, thunk, thunk. I abandoned my cart and walked toward the sound. It was coming from the stockroom area where we kept the walk-in freezer. My stomach turned cold as I remembered Rule 3. Rule 3. The walk-in freezer locks from the inside. If you hear knocking from inside when no one else is on shift, do not open it until sunrise. I approached the freezer slowly. It was a big industrial unit, the kind you could walk into. The door was heavy steel with a small window at eye level, though the window was usually frosted over from the cold. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The knocking was definitely coming from inside the freezer. I stood in front of the door, my hand hovering near the handle. Through the frosted window, I could see movement, something shifting inside. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The knocking got faster, more desperate. Then I heard a voice, a woman's voice, muffled by the thick door. Please, please, I'm freezing. Let me out. My hand moved toward the handle without my conscious decision. Someone was trapped in there. Someone was going to freeze to death if I didn't help them. Please. The voice was clearer now, panicked. I can't feel my fingers. It's so cold. Please help me. I gripped the handle. It was ice cold, burning my palm. I started to turn it. Then I remembered Mr. Garrett's face when he'd explained the rules. His voice, you follow them, you'll be fine. I jerked my hand away from the handle. I know you're there. The voice changed, became angry. Open this door. Open it right now. The knocking became pounding. The entire door shook with each impact. Whatever was inside wasn't just knocking with its fists anymore. It was throwing its entire weight against the door. Bang, bang, bang. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. The voice wasn't human anymore. It was too loud, too distorted, like multiple voices screaming at once. I ran. I went to the farthest corner of the store, put in my earbuds, and turned my music up as loud as it would go. But I could still hear it through the music, that pounding, that inhuman screaming. It went on for almost 2 hours. At 6:15, after the sun had risen, the pounding stopped. I pulled out my earbuds and listened. Silence. I made myself walk back to the stockroom, made myself approach the freezer. The door was still closed. I stood in front of it for a full minute, gathering courage, then pulled the handle. The door opened easily, no resistance. The freezer was functioning normally, cold, but not dangerously so. And it was empty, completely empty. No person, no sign that anyone had been inside. I checked the temperature gauge on the wall. It showed the freezer had been at the proper temperature all night. Not cold enough to harm anyone, even if they had been trapped inside. I was about to close the door when I saw them. The frost patterns on the inside of the door. They looked like handprints, dozens of them overlapping, pressed against the metal, as if someone had been frantically trying to push their way out. I closed the door and didn't go back to the stockroom for the rest of my shift. By my 19th night, I was barely sleeping during the day. When I did sleep, I had nightmares about the store, about aisles that stretched forever, about the woman in the floral dress turning to look at me, about the freezer door opening on its own. I'd started drinking more coffee, energy drinks, anything to keep me alert. Mr. Garrett had noticed the bags under my eyes, but hadn't said anything. Deb had, though. "You look like hell," she'd said on my last shift. "You following the rules?" "Yeah, every single one." "Good. Keep it up. It doesn't get easier, but you get used to it." I didn't see how anyone could get used to this. That night, at 1:47 in the morning, every shopping cart in the store started rattling at once. I was near the front, organizing the checkout lanes, when it started. The sound was deafening, metal shaking against metal, dozens of carts all vibrating simultaneously, not rolling, not moving from their spots, just shaking violently in place. The sound was rhythmic, steady, like breathing. Rule 4 flashed in my mind. Rule 4: if all the shopping carts start rattling at once, go to the break room and wait for it to stop. I ran for the break room, my hands over my ears. The rattling followed me, penetrating the walls, echoing through the building. It wasn't just loud. It felt wrong, like the sound was vibrating through my bones. I slammed the break room door shut and huddled in the corner, hands pressed against my ears. But the sound still got through. It was everywhere, in everything. Rattle, 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 rattle. Pause, rattle, 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 rattle. Like breathing, in and out, in and out. 20 minutes passed. I counted them on the clock on the wall, watching the second hand make its slow circles. The rattling never stopped, never varied in its rhythm. Then suddenly, it did stop. Complete silence, so abrupt it was almost painful. I waited another 10 minutes before I dared to open the break room door. The store was perfectly quiet, normal. I walked to the front slowly, half expecting something to jump out at me. All the shopping carts were perfectly still, lined up neatly in their designated areas, except one. One cart sat in the middle of the main aisle, facing the break room door, as if it had been waiting for me. I approached it carefully. Inside the cart was a single item, a carton of milk. I picked it up, looked at the expiration date. June 2019. 3 years expired. We didn't have any old stock like that in the store. Mr. Garrett was meticulous about rotating inventory. This milk shouldn't have existed. I threw it away and tried not to think about where it had come from. The next day, I cornered Mr. Garrett in his office before my shift started. "I need answers," I said, closing the door behind me. "Real answers. What the hell is going on in this store?" Mr. Garrett looked up from his paperwork. He looked tired, older than his years. "You've been following the rules?" "Yes, every single one. But that doesn't explain what's happening. The carts, the freezer, that thing in the business suit. What are they?" He was quiet for a long moment, then sighed. The store was built on the site of an old boarding house. Place burned down in 1952. 12 people died in that fire. "Okay," I said slowly. And things just started happening. When they opened the grocery store in 1968, employees quit. Some had. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Accidents. People got hurt. We lost a stockroom worker in 73. He was found in the freezer, frozen solid. A cashier in 89 disappeared during her shift, never found. After that, the rules started getting written down. Trial and error mostly. Things that seemed to work. Things that kept people safe. Safe from what? I don't know, Mr. Garrett said, and I believed him. Ghosts, maybe, echoes of what happened here. Sometimes I think it's the building itself that's hungry, the land. But I stopped trying to understand years ago. All I know is the rules work, mostly. What happened to the last night shift guy? I asked. The one who quit? Mr. Garrett's face went pale. He looked down at his desk. He didn't quit. Not exactly. He came in for his shift one night, and the next morning, we found him wandering in the parking lot. He couldn't talk, could barely walk. His hair had gone completely white, and he was only 24 years old. We called an ambulance, but by the time it arrived, he'd run off. His family said he showed up at their house later that day. Wouldn't speak, wouldn't explain. He just locked himself in his room. They eventually had to institutionalize him. Ice ran through my veins. What did he do? Did he break the rules? I don't know. Security footage from that night was corrupted, just static and weird shadows. All I know is he went in alone, and what came out wasn't the same person anymore. I left Mr. Garrett's office feeling worse than when I'd gone in. At least before, I could pretend this was just some weird haunted building. Now I knew people had died. People had been broken. But I still needed the money. I still showed up for my shift. On my 23rd night, I found new rules. I opened my locker in the break room to grab my vest, and a laminated card fell out. Not the original one. That was still in my pocket. This was new. Morrison's Market Additional Night Shift Rules. Rule 6. If you see a child in the store after 2 o'clock, they are not lost. Do not try to help them find their parents. Rule 7. The price scanner at Register 4 sometimes shows the wrong date. If it shows a date before 1952, close the register and use another one. I stared at the card, my hands shaking. I hadn't received these during orientation. I ran to find Deb before her shift ended. These weren't in my original rules, I said, showing her the card. Deb barely glanced at it. Rules change. More get added. You're noticing more now, so they want you to be careful. They? Who's they? Does it matter? She pulled on her coat. Just follow them, Tyler. Add them to your list. But how do new rules just appear? Who decides? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Deb's voice was sharp. I've seen 6 night shift workers come and go in my time here. The ones who ask too many questions don't last. The ones who just follow the rules do. Which one do you want to be? She left without waiting for an answer. I taped the new rules next to the original ones in the break room. 7 rules now. I wondered how many there would be by the time I quit this job. I didn't have to wait long to see why Rule 6 existed. On my 25th night, at 3:30 in the morning, I saw the child. I was restocking shelves in aisle 5, pasta and sauces, when I heard footsteps, small footsteps, quick and light. I looked up and saw a little boy, maybe 7 years old, wandering past the end of the aisle. He was wearing old-fashioned clothes, brown knickers, suspenders, a newsboy cap, the kind of outfit you'd see in photographs from the 1940s or 50s. His face was pale, his eyes big and dark. My first instinct was to call out, ask if he was lost. Then I remembered Rule 6. Rule 6. If you see a child in the store after 2 o'clock, they are not lost. Do not try to help them find their parents. I turned back to my work, forcing myself to focus on the jars of marinara sauce in my hands. My heart was pounding. The boy was just a kid. He looked scared, confused. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to help him. "Mister?" The voice came from right behind me. I spun around. The boy was standing about 5 feet away, looking up at me with those big, dark eyes. Up close, I could see his clothes were old. Not vintage, but actually old. Worn and faded, with patches sewn into the knees of his knickers. "Mister, can you help me find my mother?" His voice was small, plaintive. He looked like he might cry. I turned away, grabbed another jar of sauce, and started stocking the shelf. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the jar. "Please," the boy said. "She said she'd be right back. She's been gone a long time." I forced myself to keep working. Don't engage. Don't help. Follow the rules. The boy moved closer. I could feel him behind me, could smell something strange, smoke and ash and something sweet and rotten underneath. "I'm scared," he whispered. "I don't know where she went. Everything is wrong. The rooms are different. The building is wrong." I abandoned the cart and walked quickly toward the break room. The boy followed. "Please, mister. I'm scared. I don't know where she went." His footsteps followed me, getting faster. I was almost running now. "Mister, mister, mister." His voice was getting louder, more distorted with each repetition. I made it to the break room, went inside, and locked the door behind me. I leaned against it, breathing hard. "Please, mister. I'm scared." His voice came from just outside the door. "Please let me in. I'm scared of the dark. I don't like it here. I want my mother." The voice sounded wrong now. The words were right, but the tone was off. Too flat, emotionless, like someone reading from a script. "She's in the basement," the boy said. "Can you show me to the basement?" "I need to find the basement. Mother is in the basement. She's been there since the fire. She's been waiting for me since the fire. Can you show me the basement?" The words were tumbling out faster now, overlapping, the voice getting deeper. "Basement, basement, basement, fire, 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 mother, mother, mother. She's waiting. She's been waiting 60 years. She's still waiting in the basement. Show me the basement. Take me to the basement. Take me to the basement." I pressed my hands over my ears and squeezed my eyes shut. I stayed like that for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. When I finally opened my eyes and removed my hands, there was silence. I waited another 10 minutes before unlocking the door and peering out. The hallway was empty. The store was quiet. I checked the front windows. The boy was standing outside in the parking lot, his face pressed against the glass, staring in. When he saw me looking, he smiled. His smile was too wide, too many teeth. I went back to work and didn't look at the windows again until sunrise. By my 28th night, I was barely holding it together. I'd called in sick twice in the past week, which Mr. Garrett had accepted without comment. But I needed the money, so I kept going back. That night, everything happened at once. It started at midnight. I was restocking paper towels when I saw her, the woman in the floral dress. She was at the end of aisle 2, but when I moved to the next aisle, she was there too, at the far end. Same dress, same pose, same unnatural stillness. I turned and went to aisle 6. She was there too. Aisle 9. There. Retry. FT. Continue. Edit. She was. Aisle 12. Standing there, facing away from me. It was impossible. She couldn't be in multiple places at once. But when I checked each aisle, she was in all of them, simultaneously. Same floral dress, same dark hair, same absolute stillness. And each version of her was slowly turning toward me. I went to the front of the store, my breath coming in short gasps. The boy was outside the window, pressing his pale hands against the glass. He waved at me. Then, at 1:30, the shopping carts started rattling. Rule 4. I ran for the break room. Before I could get there, I heard it, the knocking from the freezer. Desperate, frantic pounding. Rule 3. Don't open it. I made it to the break room and slammed the door. But something was different this time. The rattling of the carts was louder, more violent. The building itself seemed to be shaking. Through the door, I could hear the pounding from the freezer, the boy's voice calling to me, and underneath it all, a low rumbling sound like thunder. Then the power went out. The darkness was complete, absolute. The emergency lights should have come on, but they didn't. I pulled out my phone to use as a flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. Dead battery, even though it had been at 60%. I sat in the dark break room, listening to the chaos outside, the carts rattling, the freezer pounding, footsteps in the hallway, too many footsteps, moving too fast, and that smell, thick and choking, smoke. I could smell burning wood, melting plastic, something else underneath that made my stomach turn. The temperature was rising. Sweat ran down my face. This is it, I thought. This is how I die. Whatever happened to the last night shift guy is about to happen to me. Then I remembered something Deb had said. The rules keep us safe. Mostly. That word had stuck with me. It implied the rules worked most of the time, but not always. And if the rules could fail, maybe there was another rule. Something for when everything went wrong at once. I fumbled in the darkness, hands searching the wall near the door. The rule cards were taped there. I felt the laminated surfaces, counting them. The original card, the second card with the additional rules. Behind them, my fingers found another card, smaller, hidden behind the others. I couldn't read it in the dark, so I held it up and tried to remember if I'd seen it before. I pulled at it, and it came free with a soft, tearing sound. I felt the surface. There was text embossed into the lamination itself, raised slightly. I traced the letters with my fingertips. The power came back on, sudden and blinding. I squinted at the card in my hand. Rule 0. If all rules are broken simultaneously, go to the manager's office and lock yourself in until sunrise. Do not leave under any circumstances, no matter what you hear. Rule 0. A rule that came before all the others. A rule for when everything failed at once. I looked at the clock on the wall. 4:47. Sunrise was at 6:03. Over an hour to wait. Outside the break room, I could hear things moving. The rattling had stopped, but now there were voices, dozens of them overlapping, speaking in that same flat tone the boy had used. Show me to the basement. Let me out. Can you help me find my mother? It's so cold. We've been waiting. Come out, Tyler. That last one froze my blood. They knew my name. I grabbed the Rule 0 card and opened the break room door. The hallway was full of shadows that moved wrong, reaching toward me. I ran. The manager's office was near the back of the store, past the stockroom. I sprinted through the aisles, not looking at the things I could see in my peripheral vision. The woman in the floral dress was in every aisle now, and they were all turning to watch me. The boy was inside the store, walking toward me with that too wide smile. Someone was screaming, but I realized it was the fire alarm. Smoke was filling the store, thick and black, even though I couldn't see any flames. I made it to Mr. Garrett's office and slammed the door behind me. There was a deadbolt on the inside, strange for an office, but I was grateful for it now. I locked it and dragged the desk chair in front of the door for good measure. The office was small and windowless, except for one narrow window high on the wall that looked out onto the parking lot. The only light came from that window and the thin strip under the door. I sat on the floor in the corner, clutching the Rule 0 card, and waited. Outside the door, the voices continued. Tyler, it's Mr. Garrett. Open the door. There's a fire. We need to evacuate. Mr. Garrett's voice was perfect. I would have sworn it was really him if I hadn't known he went home at 6 every evening. Tyler, it's Deb. Something's wrong with the registers. I need you to help me. Tyler, it's your mother. I'm so worried about you. Please open the door so we can talk. My mother had been dead for 2 years. Tyler, this is the fire department. We need you to exit the building immediately. Open this door. The door handle rattled. Something scratched at the wood, long dragging sounds like nails or claws. Then the door started to smolder. I could see smoke rising from the wood itself, could smell burning. The temperature in the office was rising fast. I pressed myself into the corner, as far from the door as I could get. Come out, come out, come out. You can't hide in there forever. We've been waiting so long. The fire took us, and now it wants you. Come burn with us. Come down to the basement with us. Mother is waiting, Mother is waiting, Mother is waiting. The voices overlapped until they were just noise, a terrible chorus of the dead, or whatever they were. The office was an oven now. I was soaking with sweat, my shirt clinging to my back. I looked at the clock on Mr. Garrett's desk. 5:12. 51 minutes until sunrise. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out, still dead. I tried the office phone on the desk. No dial tone, just static, and underneath it, whispers. The smoke was getting thicker, seeping under the door in grey tendrils. I pulled my shirt up over my nose and mouth, trying to filter the air. My eyes were watering. My throat burned. I was going to suffocate in here. No, I told myself. The The rule says stay until sunrise. The rule will keep me safe. But the last guy followed the rules too. A voice in my head whispered, and look what happened to him. I shook my head, pushing the thought away. I had to trust the rules. They were all I had. The scratching at the door got louder, more frantic. It sounded like dozens of hands clawing at the wood. The door was bowing inward, the wood splintering. I curled into a tighter ball, making myself as small as possible. I closed my eyes and started counting, trying to focus on anything but the sounds outside. 1, 2, 3, 4. The voices were louder now, no longer forming words, just screaming. Endless, agonized screaming. 21, 22, 23. Something hit the door hard enough to crack it. I could see the split running down the middle, the wood separating. 47, 48, 49. The smoke was so thick I couldn't see the clock anymore. I couldn't breathe. Black spots danced in my vision. 63, 64, 65. The door was breaking apart. Through the gaps, I could see movement, shadows that writhed and reached. Too many hands, too many faces, all pressing against the opening. I kept counting. It was all I could do. 88, 89, 90. The shadows were reaching through the broken door now, stretching toward me. I pressed myself harder against the wall. 112, 113. I was going to pass out. The smoke, the heat, the fear. It was too much. 141, 142. Then, suddenly, light. I opened my eyes. The small window high on the wall was glowing with pale morning light. Sunrise. The screaming stopped instantly. The shadows retreated. The smoke cleared as if it had never been there. The office door was intact. No cracks, no char marks, no damage at all. I stayed on the floor, gasping for air that suddenly felt cool and clean. I stared at the door, not quite believing it was over. 6:03 in the morning. I waited another 15 minutes, not trusting what I was seeing. Finally, I unlocked the door and pushed it open slowly. The store was normal. Completely, utterly normal. The lights were on. The aisles were neat. There was no smoke, no smell of burning. The shopping carts stood in orderly rows. The morning shift employees were arriving. I could hear Deb's voice at the front of the store, talking to someone about the weather. I walked to the front on shaky legs. Deb saw me and her eyes widened. "Jesus, Tyler, you look like hell. You okay?" I opened my mouth, but couldn't find words. What could I possibly say? That I'd spent the night being hunted by ghosts? That I'd nearly been burned alive in an office that showed no signs of fire? "You made it," Deb said quietly, stepping closer. Her voice dropped so the other employees couldn't hear. "That's more than most. What the hell is this place?" "It's a grocery store in Detroit," she said simply. "And it's haunted. Has been for 50 years. Will be for 50 more, probably." She looked at me with something like sympathy. "You followed the rules. You survived. That's all that matters." I gave my 2-week notice that day. Mr. Garrett accepted it without question, without asking why. He just nodded and said he'd have my final paycheck ready. He even offered to write me a good reference letter, which he did. It was glowing. talking about my reliability and work ethic. He made no mention of why I was leaving after only a month. During my final 2 weeks, I worked the night shift and everything was quiet. The rules didn't need to be followed. Or maybe they were following themselves now. I don't know. The woman in the floral dress didn't appear. The carts didn't rattle. The freezer stayed silent. It was like the store was letting me go. On my last night, Mr. Garrett had hired someone new to replace me, a young woman named Ashley, maybe 22 years old, with bright eyes and an optimistic smile. She arrived at 10:30 for her first training shift, and I was assigned to show her the ropes. We walked through the store together. I showed her the stock room, the break room, how to use the registers. She was enthusiastic, asking questions, excited about the job. It hurt to watch her, knowing what was waiting. At the end of the shift, I handed her the laminated rule cards, all of them, including Rule 0. She read through them and laughed. "This is a joke, right? Some kind of hazing thing?" I looked her in the eye. "No, it's not a joke. These rules are the only thing keeping you safe in this store. You follow them exactly. No exceptions, no testing them. Understand?" Her smile faded as she saw my expression. "You're serious." "Completely serious." I glanced around the store, at the aisles that looked so normal in the daylight. This place is wrong. Something's wrong with it. I don't understand what or why, but the rules work. Just follow the rules. Exactly. Ashley looked down at the cards again, then back at me. "Did something happen to you here?" I thought about the woman in the floral dress, her face I'd never seen, the boy with too many teeth, the freezer full of handprints, the voices calling my name, the office filling with smoke and shadows. "Just follow the rules," I repeated. At 6 in the morning, I clocked out for the last time. I walked to my car in the parking lot, got in, and sat there for a moment, looking at Morrison's Market. In the early morning light, it looked almost pleasant. Just an old grocery store, nothing special. I started the engine and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw the woman in the floral dress standing in the parking lot, watching me leave. Her face was still turned away, but I felt her eyes on me anyway. I didn't look back again. It's been 2 months since I quit. I found a new job at a warehouse, day shift, loading trucks and moving boxes. It's honest work, physical work, and I like that I can see the sun while I'm working. But I still can't sleep well at night. I lie awake, listening to the sounds of my apartment building, jumping at every creak and groan. Sometimes I smell smoke, even though nothing's burning. Sometimes I hear knocking and have to check every door and window to prove to myself that nothing's there. Last week, I drove past Morrison's Market. I don't know why. My route to work doesn't take me anywhere near there. I just found myself turning down those streets, pulled by something I couldn't name. There was a new "Help Wanted" sign in the window, night shift position available. I wondered if Ashley had lasted, or if she'd already quit. Or worse, I kept driving. I didn't stop. I didn't go inside. But I think about it sometimes, about the rules and what they're protecting us from, about what really happened in that boarding house fire in 1952, about why a grocery store built on top of tragedy would inherit its horrors. Mr. Garrett said he thought the building was hungry, that the land remembers. I think he's right. Some places are soaked in bad things, stained by death and fear. And those stains don't wash away. They just wait. They attract things, feed things. Morrison's Market is one of those places. I followed the rules, and I survived. But I'll never forget what's waiting in that store after dark. The woman who stands so still, the child who can't find his mother, the voices calling from the freezer, the shadows that reach and grab and burn. Some places are hungry. Some places remember. And Morrison's Market remembers everyone who works there, even after they leave. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I take out the laminated rule cards I kept. I read through them, reminding myself that I made it out, that I'm safe now. But on the back of Rule 0, the one that saved my life, there's text I never noticed before. It must have been there all along, printed in small letters I couldn't see in the darkness of that terrible night. It says, once you've worked the night shift, you're never truly free. They know your name now. They'll remember. And if you ever come back, even just to visit, the rules won't protect you anymore. I keep the card anyway, hidden in my dresser drawer, a reminder of what I survived, a warning to never go back. Sometimes I still see them in my peripheral vision. A floral dress in a crowd, a child in old-fashioned clothes walking past my window, a business suit gliding through the grocery store I shop at now during the day, during the blessed safety of daylight. They're not really there. They can't be. But I never look directly at them, just in case. I followed the rules, and I survived. That has to be enough.